Eternal light, shine in our hearts and illumine our minds, that we may perceive your truth and behold your beauty. As we hear the ancient story, enlighten our hearts with a new song, that we may declare your glory and proclaim your good news of great joy for all people. Amen. The first chapter of the Gospel of John. This is the story of God for the people of God. Listen to what God will say to you today. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify of the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave the power to become children of God, who were born not of blood or of the will of flesh or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory as of the Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. This is the word of the Lord. When I was a child, my mom read me a book called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. You may be familiar with it. I realized that my whole life I thought this book took part in a small southern town. And rereading it as an adult, I realized it actually never says that in the book. I just assumed it was a small southern town from the dynamics happening in the book. It's all rooted around one church. Well, one church and one family. The family are the Herdmans, and they have a reputation in town for being terrible. There are 6 Herdman children, and they are in trouble all the time. The story is written from the perspective of a middle school girl who knows the Herdman. She goes to school with them. And she's talking about the Christmas where the Herdmans decide to go to church. They decide to go to church because the narrator's younger brother lies to them and tells them that there are snacks at Sunday school. And they happen to show up on the one day that the Sunday school class is getting ready for the Christmas pageant. They decide immediately the Christmas pageant is something that they want to be a part of. And they bully all of the other kids into letting them have the main roles. They wind up being Mary and Joseph and the angel and all of the Magi. There's kind of this culmination at the final rehearsal for the pageant when they're supposed to run through the whole thing. There's also a potluck that night, and one of the women of the church goes into the women's restroom to find it filled with smoke. So she calls the rest of the fire folks to come and put out a fire, unaware that the Herdman girl who was playing Mary was really just smoking a cigar. This is how all of the Christmas pageant preparation has gone, up to this point. We join the Herdmans and this church in chapter 7. On the night of the pageant, we didn't have any supper because Mother forgot to fix it. My father said it was all right. Between the church matriarch calling my mother every day and the pageant rehearsals not going well, he had stopped expecting supper. When it's all over, he said, we'll go someplace and have hamburgers. But Mother said when it was all over, she might want to go someplace and hide. We've never once gone through the whole thing, she said. I don't know what's going to happen. It may be the first Christmas pageant in history where Joseph and the wise men get in a fight, and Mary runs away with the baby. She might be right, I thought. And I wondered what all of us in the angel choir ought to do if that happened. It would be dumb for us to just stand there singing about the holy infant if Mary had run off with him. But nothing seemed very different at first. There was the usual big mess all over the place. Baby angels getting poked in the eye by other baby angels' wings, and grumpy shepherds stumbling over their back rows. The spotlight swooped back and forth and up and down until it made you sick at your stomach to look at it. And as usual, whoever was playing the piano pitched Away in a Manger so high we could hardly hear it, let alone sing it. My father always says Away in a Manger starts out sounding like a closet full of mice. But everything settled down, and at 7:30 the pageant began. While we sang Away in a Manger, the ushers lit candles all around the church, and the spotlight came on to be the star. So you really had to know the words to Away in a Manger because you couldn't see anything, not even Alice Windlekin's Vaseline eyelids. After that, we sang 2 verses of O Little Town of Bethlehem, and then we were supposed to hum some more O Little Town of Bethlehem while Mary and Joseph came in from the side door. Only they didn't come in right away. So we hummed, and we hummed, and we hummed, which is boring and also very hard. And before long, it doesn't sound like any song at all anymore, but more like an old refrigerator running. I knew something like this would happen, Alice Windlekin whispered to me. They didn't come at all. We won't have any Mary and Joseph. And now what are we supposed to do? I guess we would have gone on humming till we all turned blue. But we didn't have to. Ralph and Imogene Herdman were there all right, only for once, they didn't come through the door pushing each other out of the way. They just stood there for a minute as if they weren't sure they were in the right place. Because of the candles, I guess, and the church being full of people. They looked like people that you see on the 6 o'clock news. Refugees sent to wait in some strange, ugly place with all their boxes and sacks around them. It suddenly occurred to me that this was just the way it must have been for the real Holy Family, stuck away in a barn by people who didn't much care what happened to them. They couldn't have been very neat or tidy either, but more like this Mary and Joseph. Imogene's veil was cockeyed as usual, and Ralph's hair stuck out all around his ears. Imogene had a baby doll, but she wasn't carrying it the way she was supposed to, nicely cradled in her arms. She had it slung up over her shoulder, and before she put it in the manger, she thumped it twice on the back. I heard Alice gasp, and she poked me. I don't think it's very nice to burp baby Jesus, she whispered, as if he had colic. Then she poked me again. Do you suppose he could have had colic? I said, I don't know why not. And I didn't. He could have had colic, or been fussy, or hungry, like any other baby. After all, that was the whole point of Jesus. That he didn't come down on a cloud like something out of amazing comics, but that he was born, and he lived. He was a real person. Right away we had to sing while shepherds watched their flocks by night. And we had to sing very loud because there were more shepherds than there were anything else. And they made so much noise, banging their hooks around like a bunch of hockey sticks. Next came Gladys from behind the angel choir. Gladys Herdman pushing people out of the way and stepping on everyone's feet. Since Gladys was the only one in the pageant who had anything to say, she made the most of it. Hey, unto you a child is born, she hollered. as if it was, for sure, the best news in the world. And all of the shepherds trembled, sore afraid. Of Gladys, mainly, but it looked good anyway. Then came 3 carols about angels. It took that long to get the angels in because they were all primary kids, and they got nervous and cried and forgot where they were supposed to go and bent their wings in the door and things like that. We got a little rest then while the boys sang "We Three Kings of Orient Are," and everybody in the audience shifted around to watch the wise men march up the aisle. "What have they got?" Alice whispered. I did not know, but whatever it was heavy. Leroy almost dropped it. He didn't have his frankincense jar either, and Claude and Ollie Herdman didn't have anything, although they were supposed to bring gold and myrrh. I knew this would happen, Alice said for the second time. I bet it's something awful. Like what? I asked. Like a burnt offering. You know the Herdmans. Well, they did burn things, but they hadn't burned this yet. It was a ham. And right away I knew where it came from. My father was on the church charitable works committee, and they give away food baskets at Christmas, and this was the Herdman's food basket ham. It still had the bow on it and everything. I bet they stole it, said Alice. They did not. It came from their food basket, and if they want to give away their own ham, I guess they can do it, I said. But even if the Herdmans didn't like ham, which was Alice's guess, they had never before in their lives given anything away except lumps on the head. So you had to be impressed. Leroy dropped the ham in front of the manger. It looked funny to see ham there instead of fancy bath salts jars that we always used for the myrrh and the frankincense. And then they went and they sat down in the only space that was left. While we sang "What Child Is This?", the wise men were supposed to confer among themselves and then leave by a different door so everyone would understand that they were going home by another way. But the Herdmans forgot. Or they just didn't want to, or something, because they didn't confer and they didn't leave. They just sat there, and there wasn't anything anyone could do about it. They're ruining the whole thing, Alice whispered. But they weren't at all. As a matter of fact, it made perfect sense for the wise men to sit down and rest, and I said so. They were supposed to have come a long way. You wouldn't expect them to just show up, hand over the ham, and leave. As for ruining the whole thing, it seems to me that the Herdmans had improved the pageant a lot, just by doing what came naturally, like burping the baby, for instance, or thinking a ham would make a better present than a lot of perfumed oil. Usually by the time we got to Silent Night, which was always the last carol, I was fed up with the whole thing and couldn't wait for it to be over. But I didn't feel that way this time. I almost wished for the pageant to go on, with the Herdmans in charge, to see what else they would do differently. Maybe the wise men would tell Mary about their problem with Herod, and she would tell them to go back and lie their heads off. Or Joseph might go with them and get rid of Herod once and for all. Or Joseph and Mary might tell the wise men to take the Christ child with them, figuring that no one would think to look there. I was so busy planning new ways to save the baby Jesus that I missed the beginning of Silent Night. But it was all right because everyone sang Silent Night, including the audience. We sang all the verses, too. And when we got to Son of God Loves Pure Light, I happened to look at Imogene, and I almost dropped my hymn book on a baby angel. Everyone had been waiting all this time for the Herdmans to do something absolutely unexpected. And sure enough, that happened. Imogene Herdman, the most unlikely Mary in the history of the church, was crying. In the candlelight, her face was all shiny with tears, and she didn't even bother to wipe them away. She just sat there, awful old Eugene, in her crookedy veil, crying and crying and crying. Well, y'all, it was the best Christmas pageant we ever had. Everybody said so, but nobody seemed to know why. When it was over, people stood around the lobby of the church talking about what was different this year. There was something special, everyone said, but they couldn't put their finger on what. Mrs. Wendelkin said, well, Mary, the mother of Jesus, had a black eye. That was something special, but only what you might expect, she added. She meant that it was the most natural thing in the world for a herdman kid to have a black eye. But actually, this time, nobody hit Imogen, and she didn't hit anybody else either. Her eye wasn't really black. It was just all puffy and swollen. She'd walked into the corner of the choir robe cabinet in a kind of daze, as if she had just caught on to this idea of God and to the wonder of Christmas. And this was the funny thing about it all. For years, I thought about the wonder of Christmas and the mystery of Jesus' birth, and I'd never really understood it. But now, because of the herdmans, it didn't seem so mysterious after all. When Imogen had first asked me what the pageant was about, I told her it was about Jesus. But now I knew that was just part of it. It was about baby and his mother and his father, who were in a lot of trouble. No money, no place to go, no doctor, nobody they knew. And then, arriving from the east, kind of like my uncle from New Jersey, some rich friends show up. But Imogen, I guess, didn't see it that way. Christmas just came over her all at once, like the case of the chills and fever. And so she was crying and walking into furniture. Afterward, there were candy canes and little tiny testaments for everyone, and a poinsettia plant for my mother for the whole Sunday school class. We put the costumes away and folded up the collapsible manger. And just before we left, my father snuffed out the last of the tall white candles. I guess that's everything, he said as we stood at the back of the church. All over now. It was quite a pageant. Then he looked at my mother. What's that you've got? He asked. It's a ham, she said. They wouldn't take it back. They wouldn't take any candy either, or any of the little Bibles. But Imogen did ask me for a set of the Bible story pictures, and she took out the picture of Mary and said it was exactly right. Whatever that means. I think it means that no matter how she herself was, Imogen liked the idea of Mary in the picture. All pink and white and pure-looking, as if she never washed the dishes or cooked supper, or did anything at all except for have Jesus on Christmas Eve. But as far as I'm concerned, Mary is always going to look a whole lot like Imogen Herdman, sort of nervous and bewildered, but ready to clobber anyone who laid a hand on her baby. And the wise men are always going to be Leroy and his brothers, bearing ham. When we came out of church that night, it was cold and clear, with crunchy snow underfoot and bright, bright stars overhead. And I thought about the angel of the Lord, Gladys, with her skinny legs and her dirty sneakers sticking out under her robe, yelling at all of us, everywhere. Hey, unto you a child is born.